Now to an Ohio couple who found out they were pregnant, only to learn moments later that they were carrying someone else's baby. We're going to talk with them exclusively in just a moment, but first, today, national correspondent Amy Robach has their story.
Carolyn and Sean Savage still have a hard time accepting what happened 8 months ago.
I was sitting in my office, and about 4 o'clock received a call from the physician who performed the transfer. He let me know at that moment in almost one sentence that Carolyn was pregnant, but they had thought and transferred another couple's embryos. And I immediately went to, how am I going to tell Carolyn?
So I was upstairs in my bedroom, and he came through the door and he just said, "I have really bad news." And I kind of sat up. He said, "You're pregnant, but they transferred the wrong embryos." I was actually yelling at you, I think. "You're joking, you're joking, you're joking." And he kept shaking his head no, and he was as white as a sheet.
We had been delivered the worst news of our life.
After a series of miscarriages while trying to have a third child, the couple turned to in vitro fertilization, or IVF. It worked. 18 months ago, Carolyn gave birth to Mary Kate after 10 years of trying. As with many IVF cases, there were extra embryos, fertilized eggs that could one day become a child.
We felt strongly that we needed to give every embryo that we created a chance at life. So in that third cycle, we had extras, and we froze them for future pregnancy attempts.
So in February, they went in to have those embryos thawed and transferred into Carolyn's body, hoping to complete their family with a fourth child.
Did you think you were using your remaining embryos?
Of course.
Absolutely.
She was pregnant. That's when their lives changed forever. The fertility doctor gave them their difficult choices.
We had an option to terminate, and he made it clear to us that if we chose to continue the pregnancy, that we would have to give the baby back.
14 weeks into the pregnancy, they reached out to the couple whose child was growing inside Carolyn. Then they met.
So they came into the room, and we all kind of stood up, and it was very cordial. We shook hands.
She started with a thank you.
She was so grateful for what we had done.
Now, in less than 2 weeks, Carolyn will give birth to the baby she desperately wanted, but is not hers to keep.
This might even be a hard question to answer, but what has been the hardest part?
You know, I don't think we've hit the hardest part. The hard part has been the anticipation of what I think we think is going to be the hardest part. And the hardest part is the delivery. And, you know, I remember communicating with the mother of this child as to what I was envisioning and hoping for. I said, we want a moment to say hello and goodbye. That'll be hard.
That was Amy Robach reporting. Carolyn and Sean Savage are with us now exclusively. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Meredith.
Carolyn, I know that you are now 35 weeks along. Both of you are religious. You decided early on that you would never consider terminating this pregnancy, even though you knew the baby was not genetically yours. But could you describe the journey that the two of you have been on these 35 weeks, every heartbeat, every sonogram?
It's been hard. We've been rooting for the baby the whole time. I think we moved from a position of shock to then a realization that this was actually going to happen. At that point, a lot of planning took place on how we would handle this with our children. We do have 3 children who are 15, 12, and 1.5, and our families and their friends and our community. We needed to communicate that with them. We needed to put the needs of the pregnancy and the child first, and I think to characterize it, it's been difficult, but we feel that we've made the right decisions on how to handle it.
How have the kids handled it, Sean? Particularly your teenage boys. Your daughter wouldn't understand this, she's too little, but the boys certainly can comprehend it.
Yeah, I think they handled it very well. That was very difficult for us to have to share the information with them But based on their ages of 14 and 12, they are now at that age where they understand where babies come from. And so they were able to understand the science behind what happened. And they asked some very good questions. And they've handled it exceptionally well. And we've tried to set a tone inside our house that is conducive to keeping this in the most positive way as a teaching moment for them on when you face a tough situation in life, how are you going to handle it?
You know, Carolyn, you said the worst is still ahead of you, and that is the day that you deliver the baby, and that could be as early as next week possibly. How have you prepared for that moment, the two of you? How can you prepare?
You know, I think we can't control what happens in a delivery room. Everybody knows that's kind of nature takes its course. It is a C-section, so we've tried to visualize it. We've worked with a mental health professional since we learned of the situation, and he's helped us move to. Boy, I think in the beginning we were really scared of that moment, and it's still scary. We're trying to mentally frame it in a positive way, trying to look at it as a gift for another family that 8 months ago we didn't know, and look at it like that. I think that's the only way we're going to get through it.
And I know
it will be exceptionally.
Go ahead.
It'll be exceptionally difficult. It'll be exceptionally difficult, but at the same time, as Carolyn mentioned, we've been preparing for this for months, and what we're giving this other family is our focus as best as it can be at this point.
This other family will be there, obviously, when the baby is delivered, because they will take the baby shortly thereafter. Do you hope to have any role in the baby's life going forward? Any contact? Have you discussed that?
We have discussed that with them, and what we expressed to them is that we know they did not ask for this. The day of our transfer, of our embryo transfer, they were at home with their family, minding their own business, and we are not going to impress ourselves into their lives. Of course, we will wonder about this child every day for the rest of our lives, and we have hopes for him. But they're his parents, and we'll defer to their judgment on when or if they ever tell him what happened, and any contact that's afforded us. We just want to know he's happy and healthy.
And I know, Carolyn, because of your health conditions, this is the last baby that you can carry. You still have those embryos of yours. What are your plans for them?
We, as a result of what happened to us this past February, we have looked into using a gestational carrier for the rest of our embryos. We have 5 that are cryopreserved. At the time of this transfer, we were told that kind of a number of embryos would afford us maybe 1 chance at an additional pregnancy. And so we've entered a very unfamiliar world, but we've been guided by good family law attorneys, and we have signed a contract and found a gestational carrier, and we're very blessed to have found her. Now we're kind of wrapped up in the cumbersome details before that process can get started.
Yeah, and I know you have not wanted to talk about the legal implications of all of this, but your lawyer made it clear that following the delivery of the case, providers will accept you're hoping they will accept full responsibility for the consequences of their misconduct. Carolyn and Sean Savage, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sure this is a very difficult time for both of you.
Thanks, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.